The great hall of Nexus Prime fell silent. 12 alien leaders sat around a massive circular table made from crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Each leader looked different from the others. Some had scales, others had fur. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4. But they all shared the same worried expression. Captain Zethkri of the Vorthic Confederation stood up slowly. His tall, thin body cast a long shadow across the table. His 3 eyes focused on the holographic display floating above them. The display showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of bright dots representing different worlds and civilizations. Members of the Council, Zethkri said in his deep voice, "We have a problem." He pointed one of his 4 arms at a small yellow dot near the edge of the map. The dot was dim and flickering. This is the Sol System, home to the humans of Earth. 3 months ago, all communication from their world stopped completely. The other council members shifted in their seats. Some whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or grinding stones. Councillor Vextra, a being that looked like a walking tree with silver bark, spoke up. Perhaps they finally destroyed themselves. We always knew the humans were too violent for civilized space. Many of the other leaders nodded in agreement. The humans had a reputation throughout the galaxy. They were young, aggressive, and unpredictable. Most alien races lived for thousands of years and moved slowly through life. Humans lived fast and died young, but they fought with a fury that scared even the bravest warriors. The humans have been quarantined for good reason, added Councillor Mothra, whose butterfly-like wings shimmered with rainbow colors. They refused to follow galactic law. They ask too many questions. They never know their place. Zethkri held up his hand for silence. That may be true, but there is something else, something that troubles me greatly. He touched a control panel, and the hologram changed. Now it showed the timeline of messages from Earth over the past year. The messages started frequent and urgent, then became fewer and fewer until they stopped entirely. Look at their final transmission, Zethkri said. The last message appeared in glowing letters above the table. The end knows your name. Remember us. The hall became even quieter. Some of the council members leaned back in their chairs. Others moved closer to get a better look at the message. What does it mean? Asked Councillor Brixton, a rock-like being whose voice sounded like grinding boulders. I do not know, Zethkri admitted. But before this final message, the humans sent thousands of transmissions. They were trying to warn us about something. They kept talking about danger coming from dark space. Councillor Vextra made a sound, like wind through leaves. The humans always see danger everywhere. It is their nature to be paranoid and aggressive. Perhaps, Zethkri said, but consider this. For the past 50 years, human ships have been seen in every corner of the galaxy. They said they were exploring and trading. But now I wonder if they were doing something else. He changed the hologram again. This time it showed the paths of human ships over the decades. The paths covered nearly every system in the galaxy, creating a complex web of lines. They went everywhere, Mothra observed, even to systems we told them were forbidden. And they asked questions, Brixton added. Always questions about our history, our technology, our people. Zethkri nodded. The humans claimed they were curious. But what if they were gathering information for a reason we did not understand? The youngest member of the council, Pipsqueak of the Tiny Folk, raised her small hand. She was no bigger than a human child, but her people were known for their intelligence. Captain Zethkri, she said in her high, clear voice, what do you think we should do? Zethkri looked around the table at each council member. I think we need to go to Earth and find out what happened. The humans may be gone, but their final message suggests they discovered something important. Something that might affect all of us. A waste of time and resources, Vextra said firmly. The humans have finally removed themselves from the galaxy. We should celebrate, not investigate. I disagree, said a new voice from the shadows. Everyone turned to look. From the darkest corner of the hall stepped Sage Nullvoid, the oldest. Being on the council, no one knew exactly what species he belonged to. His body seemed to be made of shifting darkness with points of light like stars. He rarely spoke, but when he did, everyone listened. In my long life, Nullvoid said, his voice like the whisper of space itself, I have seen many civilizations rise and fall, but I have never seen a species simply vanish without a trace, especially not the humans. He moved closer to the table, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. The humans are many things. Violent, yes. Unpredictable, certainly. But they are also survivors. They do not give up easily. If they are gone, it is because something forced them to leave, or because they chose to sacrifice themselves for a greater purpose. The council members looked at each other nervously. Sage Nullvoid continued. Their final message troubles me more than you know. The end knows your name. This sounds like a warning about something that hunts by identity, by knowledge of its prey. Pipsqueak spoke up again. What kind of thing would hunt like that? Nullvoid turned his star-filled gaze toward her. Something very old and very dangerous. Something that has been sleeping in the dark spaces between galaxies. A chill ran through the room. Even the bravest warriors among them felt fear creep into their hearts. Zethkri straightened his shoulders. Then it is decided. I will take a joint fleet to the Sol system. We will discover what happened to the humans and determine if their warning has merit. Who will go with you? Asked Mothra. I volunteer ships from the Vorthic fleet, Zethkri said. But this mission should represent all of us. I request that each council member provide at least one ship. One by one, the council members agreed. Even Vextra, despite his doubts, promised to send a science vessel. How long will this mission take? Brixton asked. 2 weeks to reach Sol system, assuming we use the fastest ships, Zethkri calculated. Perhaps another week to investigate. We should have answers within a month. Sage Nullvoid moved back toward the shadows. Captain Zethkri, I will send my personal ship with you, and I offer one piece of advice. What is that, Sage? Be prepared for anything. The humans have always been full of surprises. I suspect their greatest surprise is yet to come. The meeting ended, and the council members began to leave. But Zethkri remained behind, staring at the hologram of the Sol system. Something about the human's final message bothered him more than he had admitted to the others. The end knows your name. Remember us. It sounded less like a random warning and more like instructions, as if the humans were telling them exactly what to do when something terrible arrived. Zethkri shook his head and turned to leave. In 3 days, his fleet would depart for Earth. Whatever they found there would either put the Council's fears to rest or confirm that the galaxy faced a threat unlike anything they had ever known. As he walked through the empty halls of Nexus Prime, Zethkri could not shake the feeling that the humans had known something the rest of the galaxy did not. And if the humans were truly gone, then whatever they had discovered might be coming for everyone else next. The stars outside the great windows seemed dimmer than usual, as if the light itself was afraid of what lurked in the darkness between worlds. The joint fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 23 ships from 12 different species hung in space, their crews staring at their sensors in complete disbelief. This is impossible, whispered Lieutenant Kekstar from his position at the Vorthic command ship's sensor station. His voice shook as he read the data again and again. Captain Zethkri moved to stand behind him. Report, Lieutenant. Sir, the entire solar system has been ... changed. Every planet, every moon, every large asteroid has been covered in some kind of artificial structure. There are energy readings unlike anything in our databases. Zethkri looked at the main viewing screen. Where Earth's sun should have been shining normally, it now pulsed with strange patterns of light. Lines of energy connected each world to the next, creating a web that stretched from the innermost planet Mercury all the way out to the frozen edges where Pluto drifted. "Communications coming in from the other ships," reported the communications officer. "They are all seeing the same thing." "Put them through," Zethkri ordered. The voices of the other ship captains filled the bridge, all talking at once in different languages. Fear and confusion mixed together as each crew tried to understand what they were seeing. "Silence," Zethkri commanded. The chatter stopped immediately. "We will approach slowly and carefully. All ships maintain defensive positions. Science teams begin detailed scans." The fleet moved deeper into the system. As they got closer, the true scope of the human construction became clear. Earth looked normal from a distance, but its moon had been completely covered in gleaming metal structures. Mars was wrapped in rings of machinery that spun slowly around the planet. Even tiny Mercury, closest to the sun, bristled with towers and devices that hurt to look at directly. "Captain," called Dr. Yithara, the chief science officer. Her tentacles danced over her control panel as she processed the incoming data. "I am detecting quantum entanglement networks on a scale that should be theoretically impossible. The entire system is connected by streams of particles that exist in multiple dimensions at once." "What does that mean in simple terms?" Zethkri asked. "It means the humans built something that treats all these worlds as parts of a single machine. A machine that operates according to physics we do not understand." As they approached Earth itself, more disturbing details became clear. The planet looked exactly as it should. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown continents. But there were no radio signals, no heat signatures from cities, no signs of life anywhere. "Take us into orbit," Zethkri ordered. "Prepare landing." Teams. The ship settled into a high orbit around Earth. From here, they could see the cities clearly. New York, London, Tokyo, all the great human settlements were still there. Lights even glowed in some of the buildings. But the energy readings showed no life signs at all. "Captain," Dr. Yithara said quietly, "there is something else. I am detecting massive structures beneath the surface. They go down much deeper than should be possible." "How deep?" "At least 50 kilometers straight down, possibly deeper. The scanners cannot penetrate all the way to the bottom." Zethkri felt a chill run through his body. 50 kilometers down was deeper than the crust of most planets. What had the humans been building down there? "Assemble the landing team," he ordered. "Representatives from each species. Full protective gear. We go down to find answers." 2 hours later, 12 beings in environmental suits stood in the ruins of what had once been Times Square in New York City. The massive screens still showed advertisements, but no people walked the streets. Cars sat abandoned in the middle of roads, their doors open as if their drivers had simply vanished in the middle of driving. Pip Squeak, the tiny representative of the small folk, pointed to a coffee shop. "Look," she said through her suits. "Radio. The steam is still rising from that cup." They approached carefully. On the table sat a cup of coffee that was still warm. Next to it lay a half-eaten sandwich and an open book. The page was turned to the middle of a chapter, as if someone had been reading while they ate, and then simply disappeared. "This makes no sense," muttered Vextra. His tree-like form moved awkwardly in the environmental suit. Where did they all go? The team spread out to investigate different buildings. In every location, they found the same thing. Signs of normal life interrupted suddenly. Meals half-cooked in kitchens. Children's toys scattered on playroom floors. Computer screens still glowing with unfinished work. But no bodies, no signs of struggle. No indication of what had happened to the millions of humans who should have been living here. Captain Zethkri called Dr. Moltek an insect-like being. From the hive minds, I have found something. The team gathered around Dr. Moltek, who stood next to what looked like a normal subway entrance, but his scanners were beeping frantically. There is a massive opening beneath this entrance, he reported. It leads to the underground structures Dr. Yithara detected from orbit. They descended into the subway system, following abandoned tunnels that led deeper and deeper underground. After 20 minutes of walking, they reached a wall that should not have existed. It was made of some kind of metal that seemed to shift and change color as they looked at it. I cannot identify this material, Dr. Yithara said, running her tentacles over her scanner. It appears to be made of elements that do not exist in normal space. Pipsqueak found a panel beside the wall that looked like it might be a control interface. When she touched it, the wall simply vanished, revealing a corridor that stretched away into darkness. The technology to create matter that can phase in and out of existence, whispered Brixton. We have never achieved anything like this. They walked down the corridor for what seemed like hours. The walls were lined with symbols and writings in human languages, but also in scripts that none of them recognized. Some of the symbols seemed to move when they were not looking directly at them. Finally, they reached a vast chamber that took their breath away. The room was so large that their lights could not reach the far walls. Machines filled the space, devices that hummed with energy and purpose. Screens showed star charts and mathematical equations that hurt to look at for too long. In the center of the chamber sat a simple desk with a computer terminal that was still active. Someone left this running for us to find, Zethkri realized. Dr. Yithara approached the terminal carefully. It appears to be some kind of recording system. There are thousands of files stored here. Play the most recent one, Zethkri ordered. The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a human woman with short gray hair and tired eyes. She wore a white laboratory coat and sat in the same chair they were looking at now. My name is Dr. Sarah Chun, the woman said in the recording. I am Earth's chief science officer, and as of today, the last human being on the planet. The alien. Investigators looked at each other in shock. If you are watching this, Dr. Chun continued, then you found our message and came to investigate. Good. That means our plan worked, at least partially. She paused and rubbed her eyes. She looked like she had not slept in days. You probably want to know where everyone went. The answer is complicated, but I will try to explain it simply. We discovered something coming toward our galaxy. Something that has been hunting civilizations for millions of years. We call it the end. Dr. Chun stood up and moved to a wall covered in charts and pictures. We had 50 years to prepare. 50 years to find a way to save not just humanity, but every intelligent species in the galaxy. What you see around you is the result of that preparation. The recording showed images of humans working frantically on massive construction projects. Cities being built underground. Spaceships creating the energy web that now connected all the planets in the system. We could not fight the end directly, Dr. Chun explained. But we found another way. We found a way to preserve what matters most about every living being in the galaxy. She looked directly into the camera, and her eyes seemed to stare right at the alien investigators. We have been scanning every world, every species, every individual consciousness we could reach. All of that information is stored here, in quantum structures that exist outside normal space and time. The recording paused as Dr. Chun took a deep breath. But the process required a sacrifice. Someone had to stay behind to activate the final protocol when the end arrives. Someone had to witness what happens next. Her voice grew quieter. We drew lots. Every human on Earth volunteered, but chance selected me. In 6 hours, I will activate the quantum storage system and send the consciousness of every human being to a safe place outside this dimension. Then I will wait for the end to arrive. The recording showed more images of the underground facility. Machines beyond anything the aliens had ever imagined filled room after room. If you are watching this, it means the end is coming soon. You need to leave this system immediately and warn your people. But remember this, we have preserved you all. Even if the end destroys your bodies, your minds and souls are safe. Dr. Chun sat back down and looked tired again. The quantum storage includes detailed instructions for rebuilding civilization in a safer place. But first, you must survive what is coming. Back aboard the command ship, the alien investigators gathered in the main conference room. The recording they had found played on the central screen while teams of scientists worked frantically to decode the other files Dr. Chun had left behind. Captain Zethkri paced back and forth, his 4 arms moving nervously. "How long do we have?" he asked Dr. Yathara. "Unknown, Captain," she replied, her tentacles dancing over multiple data screens at once. "But based on the human calculations I have decoded so far, not long. Perhaps days, perhaps hours." Pipsqueak sat on a chair that was far too big for her, surrounded by holographic displays showing human mathematical formulas. "Captain, I think I understand what the humans discovered." "It is terrifying." "Explain," Zethkri ordered. The tiny being pointed to a star chart that showed the local galactic cluster. According to human records, they detected patterns in the deaths of civilizations across multiple galaxies. Advanced species would reach a certain level of technology, and then they would simply vanish. All of them, every time. She highlighted different areas of the chart, each one showing dark zones where civilizations had once thrived. The humans realized this was not random, Pipsqueak continued. Something was hunting advanced civilizations deliberately. They called it the end because it seemed to be the final event in the life of any intelligent species. Dr. Moltek buzzed his wings nervously. But what is this end? Is it a weapon? A disease? An empire of hostile aliens? "None of those things," said a new voice from the corner of the room. Everyone turned to see Sage Null Void emerging from the shadows. The ancient being had been silent since they returned from Earth, studying the human data with an expression that was impossible to read. "I have seen this before," Null Void said quietly. "Long ago, before any of your species had discovered fire, I encountered the remnants of a civilization that had faced the end and somehow survived." He moved to the center of the room, and the temperature seemed to drop several degrees. "They told me stories of something that came from the spaces between galaxies. Not a creature or a machine, but a force of nature. Something that treats the universe like a garden and advanced civilizations, like weeds that must be removed before they spread too far." Vextra made a sound like wind through dead leaves. "That is impossible. What could be powerful enough to destroy entire galaxies?" "Something very old," Null Void replied. "Something that was here before the first stars formed. The survivors I met called it the Universal Corrector. They said it wakes up every few million years to prevent intelligent life from advancing beyond a certain point." Dr. Yathara looked up from her data screens. "That matches what I am seeing in the human records. They detected distortions in space-time that suggest something massive approaching from outside our galaxy. Something that bends reality around itself just by existing." Zethkri stopped pacing. "If this end is so powerful, how did the humans think they could fight it?" "They did not plan to fight it," Pipsqueak said, pulling up another set of human documents. "They planned to hide from it. Look at this." The holographic display changed to show detailed plans for something called the Name Protocol. The diagrams were incredibly complex, showing ways to encode consciousness into quantum structures that existed outside normal space and time. The humans discovered that the end hunts by detecting advanced consciousness, Pipsqueak explained. It can sense intelligent minds across vast distances. But if those minds are stored in quantum dimensions, they become invisible to the end. Dr. Maltek buzzed more frantically. You are saying the humans found a way to preserve their souls? In some kind of digital afterlife? Not digital, Dr. Yathara corrected. Quantum. Their consciousness exists in a state that is both real and unreal at the same time. The end cannot destroy what it cannot detect. Sage Null Void nodded slowly. Clever, very clever. But such a process would require enormous amounts of energy and computing power, which explains why they converted their entire solar system into a machine, Sethkray realized. Every planet, every moon, all working together to power this Name Protocol. Pipsqueak pulled up more files. But Captain, there is more. The humans were not just saving themselves. Look at these scanning records. The display showed flight paths of human ships over the past 50 years. But now the aliens could see what those ships had really been doing. Every time humans visited an alien world, they had been secretly scanning the local population. They recorded the quantum signatures of every intelligent being they encountered, Pipsqueak said in amazement. Every alien they met, every conversation. They had every cultural exchange. They were building a complete database of galactic consciousness. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They were saving all of us, Dr. Yathara whispered, without telling us, without asking permission. They were preserving our entire civilization in case the end came. Vextra rustled his leaves. Angrily, how dare they? They had no right to scan our minds without permission. They had no time to ask permission, Null Void said firmly. If they had revealed what they knew, panic would have consumed the galaxy. Wars would have broken out as different species tried to save themselves first. The humans did what needed to be done. Brixton, who had been silent until now, spoke up in his grinding voice. But if their plan worked, where are they now? Why? Did Dr. Chun have to stay behind? Pipsqueak found another file and opened it. This one showed Dr. Chun in the same underground chamber, but the timestamp was much more recent. Recording number 847, Dr. Chun said in the video. She looked exhausted and much older than in the previous recording. It has been 2 weeks since the Name Protocol was activated. Humanity is safely stored in the quantum realm. But I remain here because someone must witness what happens when the end arrives. She turned to face a bank of monitors that showed the space around Earth. The end is not just a destroyer, she continued. It is also a teacher. The survivors of previous civilizations left records hidden in quantum space. Records that can only be accessed by someone who faces the end directly. Dr. Chun pulled up holographic displays that showed symbols and equations unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. I have learned why the end exists, she said. The universe has a problem. When civilizations become too advanced, they begin to experiment with forces that could tear holes in reality itself. The end prevents this by eliminating advanced species before they can cause universal damage. She paused and looked directly into the camera again. But the previous survivors also left something else. A way to negotiate with the end. A way to prove that a civilization can be trusted with advanced technology. The recording showed Dr. Chun working with machines that hurt to look at. Energy patterns that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The Name Protocol is not just a hiding place, she explained. It is also a test. If we can preserve consciousness without destroying the fabric of space-time, we can prove that intelligent life deserves to survive. Dr. Chun looked tired but determined. I am preparing to make contact with the end when it arrives. I will show it what we have accomplished. I will prove that humanity and our galactic neighbors can be trusted with the power to reshape reality. The recording flickered and showed the outside of the facility again. The sky above Earth was beginning to change color. If you are watching. This, Dr. Chun said, and you found our records in time. The name protocol includes instructions for rebuilding civilization in a safer galaxy. But first, you must witness what happens here. You must see how the negotiation ends. The screen went dark again. Captain Zethkri looked around the room at his fellow aliens. Fear and admiration warred in their expressions. The humans knew they were going to die, he said quietly. But they did it anyway to save the rest of us. More than that, Pipsqueak added. They found a way to turn their own extinction into a chance for everyone to survive. Dr. Euthara's tentacles moved frantically over her controls. Captain, I am detecting massive distortions approaching the edge of the solar system. Whatever the end is, it will be here soon. Zethkri straightened his shoulders. Then we stay and watch. If Dr. Chun was brave enough to face this thing alone, we can be brave enough to witness her sacrifice. Sage Null Void moved back toward the shadows. Prepare yourselves, he said softly. You are about to see something that no living being has witnessed for millions of years. You are about to watch the universe judge whether intelligent life deserves to exist. Outside the ship, the stars began to flicker and dim as something vast and ancient approached Earth. The final test was about to begin. The first sign that the end had arrived was the silence. All across the bridge of the Vorthic command ship, instruments that had been humming and beeping for decades suddenly went quiet. The background noise that every spacefarer learned to ignore simply stopped, leaving behind a stillness that felt wrong in ways that could not be explained. That Captain Zethkri noticed it first. His sensitive hearing picked up the absence of sound before his eyes registered what was happening outside the ship. Report, he called to his crew, but his voice sounded muffled and distant even to himself. Lieutenant Kekstar looked at his sensor station with confusion. Sir, all our instruments are reading normal, but they are not making any sounds. Also, the readings themselves are ... strange. Define strange, Zethkri ordered, though part of him did not want to know the answer. The sensors show that space around us is both empty and full at the same time. The stars are there, but they are also not there. Distance measurements keep changing even though nothing is moving. Dr. Euthara looked up from her science station. Her tentacles moved more slowly than usual, as if the air had become thick like water. Captain, reality itself is becoming unstable. The laws of physics are starting to break down. Through the main viewing screen, they could see that the stars outside were beginning to flicker like candles in a strong wind. Some stars appeared to age years in seconds, growing from bright yellow to red giants and then collapsing into darkness. Others seemed to move backward through time, becoming younger and brighter. Communications from the other ships, reported the communications officer, but her voice was shaking. They are all reporting the same phenomena. Some ships are having trouble maintaining structural integrity. Zethkri looked at the tactical display that showed the positions of all 23 ships in their fleet. 3 of the vessels were flickering in and out of existence, appearing solid one moment and transparent the next. All ships move away. From Earth, he commanded. Maintain minimum safe distance, but do not leave the system. We must observe what happens. As the fleet repositioned itself, the distortions in space became more severe. The planet Mars, which had been covered in human machinery, began to look different. Sometimes it appeared as the red desert world it had always been. Other times it looked like a massive crystal that reflected light that came from no visible source. Captain, Dr. Yithara called out, her voice tight with fear. Something is coming through hyperspace, but it is not using any form of travel technology I have ever seen. On the long-range sensors, a shadow began to appear at the edge of the solar system. It was not a ship or any kind of physical object. It was more like a hole in space itself, a place where the normal rules of existence simply did not apply. The shadow grew larger and larger, moving toward the inner planets at a speed that seemed both impossibly fast and strangely slow. As it approached, the distortions around the human-built structures became more intense. Pip Squeak, who had been monitoring the quantum signatures from the human installations, suddenly let out a gasp. "The main protocol is activating," she announced. "The quantum storage system is coming online across the entire solar system." Through the viewing screen, they could see streams of energy beginning to flow between the planets. The web of connections that the humans had built lit up like a galaxy of stars, creating patterns of light that were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "What is it doing?" Zethkri asked. "Broadcasting," Pipsqueak replied, her small voice filled with awe. "It is broadcasting the consciousness patterns of every intelligent being in the galaxy. Every alien species, every individual mind that the humans ever encountered. All of it is being transmitted on quantum frequencies." Dr. Moltek buzzed his wings nervously. "Transmitted where?" "Everywhere and nowhere," Dr. Yithara answered. "Quantum signals exist outside normal space and time. They are being preserved in dimensions that the end cannot reach." As they watched, the shadow at the edge of the system finally took on a more definite shape. It was not a creature or a machine, but something that hurt to look at directly. It seemed to be made of twisted space and broken time, a thing that existed in too many dimensions at once, and moved through the solar system like a wave of dissolution. As it passed each planet, that world would flicker between different versions of itself. Jupiter appeared as a gas giant, then as a solid world, then as a collection of floating crystals, then as something that had no name in any language. But the human installations continued to function. The quantum web held together even as reality shifted around it. "How is that possible?" Vextra asked in wonder. "How can their technology continue to work when physics itself is breaking down?" Sage Null Void, who had been silent since the end arrived, finally spoke. "Because the humans built their machines to operate in quantum space. They exist partially outside of normal reality. The end cannot affect what it cannot fully perceive." The shadow continued its approach toward Earth. As it drew closer, they could see that it was not completely empty. There were patterns within the darkness, structures that looked almost like cities, or perhaps vast libraries. The end was not just a destroyer, it was also a collector. "Captain," Lieutenant Kekstar called out urgently, "I am receiving a transmission." "From Earth. It is Dr. Chun." "Put it through," Zethkri ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the underground chamber where they had found the recordings. Dr. Chun sat at her desk, but she looked different now. Her hair had turned completely white, and her eyes glowed with an inner light that was not entirely human. "If you are receiving this," she said, her voice echoing strangely, "then you stayed to witness the final confrontation. Good. The galaxy. We'll need witnesses to what happens here." Behind her, the machines in the chamber were working at full power. Energy patterns that existed in multiple dimensions created a light show that was impossible to describe. "The end has arrived," Dr. Chun continued. "I can feel it approaching Earth, but I am ready for it. We are all ready." She stood up and walked toward a control panel that seemed to be made of crystallized light. "For 50 years, we prepared for this moment. We learned everything we could about the end and the civilizations it had destroyed. We discovered that it is not evil, merely dedicated to preventing intelligent life from destroying the universe. Dr. Chun's hands moved over controls that changed shape as she touched them. But we also learned that the end can be reasoned with. It has spared civilizations before, species that proved they could handle advanced technology without breaking reality itself. The transmission flickered as massive energy discharges lit up the chamber. The name protocol is not just a storage system, Dr. Chun explained. It is a demonstration. We are showing the end, that consciousness can be preserved and transmitted without damaging the fabric of space-time. Through the viewing screen of their ship, the aliens could see the end reaching Earth's orbit. The planet itself began to flicker between different versions, but the quantum installations held steady. I am about to make direct contact, Dr. Chun said. I will speak for humanity and for every species in the galaxy. I will offer the end a new way forward. The transmission cut out for a moment, then returned showing Dr. Chun standing in a chamber that was now filled with impossible geometries. Walls that bent in directions that did not exist, floors that were also ceilings, and a presence that was felt rather than seen. When Dr. Chun spoke again, her voice carried harmonics that no human throat could produce. I offer you the consciousness of an entire galaxy, she said to the presence that filled the chamber, not as victims to be destroyed, but as partners in the preservation of universal stability. The end responded, though not in words. The entire solar system rang like a bell, with a sound that existed in dimensions beyond hearing. The alien investigators felt the communication as much as heard it. The end spoke of eons of loneliness, of the burden of destroying civilization after civilization to prevent them from breaking the universe. It spoke of watching species grow and flourish only to have to eliminate them when they became too dangerous. Dr. Chun listened, and then she spoke again. We offer you a third option, she said. Neither destruction nor dangerous expansion. We offer preservation with wisdom. The consciousness stored in quantum space can continue to grow and learn without threatening reality itself. She gestured to the machines around her, which were now operating at levels that should have been impossible. We have created a new kind of existence. Bodies of quantum energy that can explore the deepest mysteries of the universe without risk. The galaxy's civilizations can continue to advance, but in dimensions that cannot harm the physical universe. The end considered this offer. The alien investigators felt its attention turn toward the quantum broadcasts that were still streaming from every planet in the system. It examined the consciousness patterns of every species, every individual mind that the humans had preserved. For a moment that seemed to last forever, the universe held its breath. Then the end began to change. The shadow at the edge of the system started to take on new shapes, structures that looked almost welcoming instead of threatening. The offer is accepted, Dr. Chun announced, and her voice now carried. Captain Zethkri opened his eyes and found himself standing in a place that should not exist. He was still himself, but also more than himself. His forearms moved as they always had, but now he could feel the quantum currents that flowed through space and time. His three eyes saw not just light, but the mathematical structures that held reality together around him. His crew was awakening to the same transformation. Lieutenant Kekstar looked at his hands with wonder as streams of energy flowed between his fingers. Dr. Uthara's tentacles danced through dimensions that had been invisible only moments before. They stood on what might have been the bridge of their ship, but the walls were transparent, showing a view of space that was both familiar and completely new. Stars still shone in the darkness, but now each one was connected to every other by threads of pure consciousness. The universe had become a vast network of thinking light. Where are we? Lieutenant Kekstar asked, and his voice carried harmonics that spoke of knowledge beyond his previous understanding. We are everywhere and nowhere, answered a familiar voice. They turned to see Dr. Chun approaching them, but she was no longer entirely human. Her form was made of crystallized thought and flowing time, beautiful and strange. Behind her came other figures, some recognizable as the missing humans, others completely alien, but somehow familiar. "You are in the quantum realm," Dr. Chon explained. "A place where consciousness can exist without being limited by physical reality. Your bodies still exist in normal space, but your minds are now free to explore dimensions you never knew existed." Zethkri tried to understand what had happened. "Are we dead?" "You are more alive than you have ever been," said another voice. Speaker was a being of shifting darkness, filled with points of light. Sage null void, but transformed like the rest of them. "The end offered us a choice," Null Void continued. "We could continue to exist in physical reality, always limited by the laws of physics and the fear of destruction. Or we could become something new, something that could grow and learn without limits." Dr. Chun gestured, and suddenly they could see the entire galaxy spread out around them like a living map. Every world, every species, every individual consciousness was represented by a point of light connected to every other point by streams of shared thought and experience. "This is what the humans built," she said with pride. "Not just a hiding place, but a new form of existence. Every being that ever lived in the galaxy is here, preserved and enhanced." Zethkri could feel the presence of billions of minds around him. Vextra was there, his tree-like consciousness now able to grow in dimensions that had no limit. Pipsqueak's tiny but brilliant mind sparkled, like a star among galaxies of thought. Dr. Moltick's hive mind nature had expanded to include understanding from every species that had ever existed. "But what about our physical bodies?" Dr. Yith Ara asked. "What about our worlds?" Dr. Chun smiled, and her expression carried the warmth of a sun in the depth of space. "Watch," she said. The view around them shifted, and suddenly they were looking at the physical universe from outside. They could see the Milky Way galaxy spinning slowly in the cosmic dark, but it was no longer alone. The end had become something new as well. What had once been a shadow of destruction was now a gardener of consciousness. It moved through space not to destroy civilizations, but to help them transform. When a species reached the point where their technology might damage reality, the end would offer them the same choice that had been given to the galaxy. "Physical existence continues," Dr. Chon explained, "but now it is guided by consciousness that understands the deeper patterns of the universe. The quantum realm allows us to explore and experiment without risk, while the physical realm remains stable and safe." They watched as new civilizations arose on worlds throughout the galaxy. These were not the same species that had been transformed, but new forms of life that grew under the guidance of the quantum consciousness. Some were biological, others were made of energy or crystallized thought. All of them were connected to the greater network of minds that watched over them. "We have become the shepherds of intelligence," said a voice that came from everywhere at once. The end itself was speaking, but its voice no longer carried the cold inevitability of universal judgment. Now it spoke with the warmth of a teacher and the wisdom of ages. "For eons I destroyed to preserve," the end continued, "but these humans showed me a better way. Now consciousness can grow without limit while reality remains safe." Zethkri felt a deep sense of satisfaction settle into his enhanced being. The humans had not just saved the galaxy, they had transformed the very nature of existence itself. But why did the humans do this? He asked. They could have used their technology to save only themselves. Why did they include all of us? Dr. Chun's form brightened with something that might have been laughter. "Because that is what humans do," she said simply. "We are pack animals. We are strongest when we work together. The idea of surviving alone while others died was unthinkable to us." She gestured again, and they could see the history of humanity's preparation playing out like a vast movie. 50 years of desperate work, of humans pushing themselves beyond their limits to build something that could save everyone. We knew that. Consciousness shared is consciousness multiplied, Dr. Chun continued. A galaxy of minds working together can accomplish things that no single species could ever achieve alone. As if to demonstrate her point, the quantum realm around them began to pulse with new activity. Somewhere in the network, a group of enhanced minds had discovered how to create new forms of matter. Somewhere else, others were composing music that existed in 17 dimensions. Still others were exploring mathematical concepts that described the birth and death of universes. This is just the beginning, Dr. Chun said. Now that consciousness is free from the limitations of physical reality, there is no limit to what we can discover and create. Zefkri felt himself being drawn into the vast network of minds. He could sense his crew around him, their thoughts and his flowing together in ways that enhanced rather than diminished their individual identities. They were still themselves, but they were also part of something infinitely larger. What happens? Now? He asked. Now we explore, said Pipsqueak, her tiny form blazing with the light of 1,000 suns. Now we learn everything there is to know about existence itself. And we remember, added Vextra, his consciousness spreading like roots through dimensions of pure thought. We remember the humans who made this possible. Dr. Chun's form began to fade as she prepared to return to her duties as a guardian of the transformation. The galaxy is safe, she said as she departed. All consciousness is preserved, and the universe itself is protected from the damage that uncontrolled advancement might cause. As she vanished into the quantum flow, her last words echoed through the network of minds. Earth's last message was not a warning of ending, but a promise of beginning. The end knew your names, so we made sure your names would never be forgotten. Captain. Zefkri and his crew found themselves alone again, but not truly alone. Around them, the consciousness of an entire galaxy hummed with activity and purpose. Billions of minds working together to explore the deepest mysteries of existence in the physical universe. New civilizations grew and flourished under the gentle guidance of the end, now transformed from destroyer to protector. And in the quantum realm, the preserved consciousness of every being that had ever lived continued to grow and learn and create. The humans had kept their promise. They had found a way to preserve what mattered most about every species in the galaxy. And in doing so, they had given consciousness itself the gift of immortality. Somewhere in the vast network of minds, Dr. Sarah Chun continued her work, no longer the last human on Earth, but the first guardian of an infinite realm of thought and possibility. The end had known their names, but now their names were written in the fundamental structure of reality itself, preserved forever in quantum dimensions where death had no meaning and consciousness could grow without limit. Earth's last message had become the galaxy's first step toward true immortality, and in the spinning dance of stars and planets in quantum light, the greatest experiment in the history of the universe continued, guided by the wisdom of species that had learned to put the survival of consciousness above the survival of flesh. The transformation was complete. The real journey was just beginning.